random. Coming up on this week's episode of Hip Hop Now podcast, it's your Hip Hop 2020 preview. Read these headlines. This album must be gone. This album must be gone. Come to Hip Hop Podcast. What up, y'all? I am your host, Vegas, and this is Hip Hop Now Podcast Extra, a podcast designed to catch you up on all things hip-hop music and culture that happened throughout the week. Returning listeners, welcome to the year 2020. If you're from the future, you know what to do. New listeners, I'm glad that your New Year resolution was to be here with me and subscribe to this very podcast, because if you like what you hear here at Hip Hop Now Podcast, the best thing to do is hit the like button, subscribe, comment if you feel like it, but more importantly, share this podcast with people you know enjoy this kind of hip-hop content. Big shout out to hiphopdx.com, allhiphop.com, and Brochure for Heads, djbooth.net, and a couple of places where I get some of my stories from. And this is something that a podcast that it's kind of become tradition. I think formally became tradition last year. I did a preview of 2019, and essentially what we're going to do is briefly talk about what we expect in hip hop as far as hip hop releases, the music in general for 2020, a couple of wishes, and a couple of things that we think may or may not happen, in regards to music and album releases and things of that nature. So let's get right into the business. Let's get this out the way right now. Detox, Jay Electronica's debut album. We can only hope. One can only hope. I think my thing with Detox is there's something about Compton that I liked a lot. I liked the Compton album a lot, but it didn't feel like a part of the Chronic series, right? You had Chronic, then you had the Chronic 2001, and it felt like a continuation of the original Chronic album, right? Just updated for the times. I think we need another one of those, because Compton wasn't necessarily that. It was a little too glossy for me. I needed something a little bit more gutter. So we see what we'll get from that. Who knows? Also, Jay Electronica, I feel like every year I say this, I think eventually we will get that album, whether it's a leak, whether it's released as part of some kind of double CD thing or whatever, or something happens. Something has to give. Now, do we really care? I don't think so, because let's keep it 100. We did all these top 10 best of the decade, blah, 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 blahs for 2019. And I think myself and a lot of us were remiss to not really understand that single that Jay Electronica put out, which we thought was going to lead to an album, Exhibit C, that's what I'm talking about. It took, I can't say it took 10 years. It's been more than 10 years since his album dropped. So it's kind of crazy to talk about it, but like I said, let's get them out the way. There's a part of us that wants it to happen. Who knows? Then there's some new developments, right? Like there's things like we've heard of Q-Tip producing an LL Cool J album or EP or whatever it is, and that'll be on Def Jam. I'm a little bit encouraged by that. And I'll say this. Only because I know Q-Tip was in charge of Danny Brown's latest album. And Danny Brown's latest album was pretty dope. Pretty slept on, but it was pretty dope. So I can only imagine production-wise what Q-Tip is going to give LL Cool J that will probably fit within, what we like about LL as a rapper. I get the feeling it's going to be something special. Hopefully it comes out. Then there's the Busta Rhymes album that was supposed to been coming out since forever, right? That's supposed to be ridiculous and crazy. We hear that all the time. We still haven't had the album, right? Then there's, I hope this didn't happen, but then there's AZ. I remember maybe a year or two ago, maybe 2 years ago, AZ said he's dropping Do or Die 2 and then he's retiring from the game. Where that album at? Redman said he was going to drop Muddy Waters 2. I feel like every week he say Muddy Waters 2 coming. When? I almost don't care. And even though Ghostface Killah did drop a very dope album in Ghostface Killers, he said that Supreme Clientele 2 is still coming out. That's an album that's high on my list. Very high on my list. So, and then there was some talk about, the Ghostface being the executive producer of the new Wu-Tang album. Maybe we'll get that in 2020. There's so many little things here and there that could be that we've heard word of but haven't seen. And there's some things that were supposed to happen this year. But let's talk about some of the things that's almost shoo-ins, almost guarantees for this year. And I think one that's really probably on the edge is Pusha T's new album. Because I feel like Drake talking about Pusha T and the whole battle in an interview really opened the lane and put a lot of eyeballs on Pusha T, which to me, you need to be dropping something, right? You need to be responding in some way. You need to be dropping something. So we'll see what it is. Benny the Butcher has a new project coming out very soon. I mean, very soon. Like, I think 2 weeks from now or a week. He already put up the album cover or whatever. I don't know if it's an album. It might just be a mixtape joint. Who knows? But let's talk about some more concrete stuff that I personally am looking forward to. Run the Jewels 4, the 4th album. You know what I'm saying? Supposedly going to be 11 tracks, about 40 minutes long. Supposed to be released somewhere early in 2020. Originally, it was supposed to come out in 2019. I remember there was a lot of talk about it, but I guess it just constantly got pushed back and never came out. I'm really curious about this because Run the Jewels' first album, crazy. Run the Jewels' second album, even better. Run the Jewels' third album, got a little Run the Jewels fatigue. I'm not even going to front. There was something that wasn't there. It was just more Run the Jewels, and it wasn't as good as what we got on the first 2 releases. So, kind of flew under the radar for a lot of people. But they've been away from it for a minute. So I think now is the time we finally get something. Supposedly, Lil Wayne is going to drop what I believe he called his final album, called The Funeral. I remember he announced this back in 2016 as it being his final album. So we'll see what happens. I don't know. Lil Wayne's last album wasn't that bad. It just didn't stick with me long enough. And it kind of felt like, the party was over. So there you have that. Then there's the album that I kept questioning throughout 2019, saying, where's this joint at? Where is it at? Because I believe it was announced at the end of 2018 and supposedly is going to be released in 2020. That's Blackstar's album. Blackstar as a group, being Yasin Bey, formerly known as Mos Def, and Talib Kweli, only had one album, and that was years ago. Years ago. So the word on the street is that the album is done. That's very encouraging, but again, I have no idea what that thing sounds like. So all I can do is hope for the best. I kind of wanted to be. I don't know what to expect, because when you think about it, right? Blackstar as a group was something dope, but there was something dope for that time as a group. And since then, Mos Def has done a lot separately as a soloist, as an actor, as an artist in general. And Talib has released a number of albums, a couple of joint projects like Reflection Eternal with High Tech, also a couple of solo projects, and he's continuously released music. So them coming back together, I can only hope that it's going to be dope. But I have no reason to think it won't, because we've got a lot of real hip hop joints, and the majority of like the reunion albums haven't disappointed me, like A Tribe Called Quest and Little Brother, so Gangstar. So I'm kind of looking forward to it. Chances are, if we get a Pusha T album, we're probably getting a Drake album. The last album that he released, or project he released, was Care Package, and this was in August of 2019. And Care Package was basically a compilation of, I don't know, I guess you could call them like remixes and loose records here and there, which I actually enjoy, because it was a lot of the Drake songs and verses, and even some bonuses that I like personally. The project kind of remind me a lot of his debut, so we'll see what a new album from Drake brings. I don't know. I think, I can't say I'm not excited. I just don't know what to expect. I think Drake, I mean, it's hard to say this confidently because he always has hits, but I think he's kind of run his course. Not to say that he's fell off, but I think the impact isn't there the way it used to be. Now, it's tough to say that when him and Chris Brown got a very dope record that's all over the radio. But I think it depends on what he's going to do. Because that last album where he rapped more, I thought I wanted an album from Drake where he rapped more, but I don't. I honestly prefer the R&B-ish Drake, because I like the music that he makes when it's that, and the rap is cool from time to time. Another one that's somewhat highly anticipated by myself, but I'm kind of curious more than anything, is Westside Gunn is doing a collaborative album with Madlib. Now, if you've been sleeping under a rock, recently Madlib did a compilation with Freddie Gibbs. He also worked on the Blackstar album. The Blackstar album we haven't heard yet, but the Freddie Gibbs Bandana album, crazy. With Westside Gunn's flow, combined with what I'm assuming will be jazz-infused hip-hop style beats from Madlib, this could be crazy. Supposedly, it's not coming out till maybe around September 2020, which is fine. Griselda Records released so many mixtapes and stuff in between. I don't think we're going to be thirsty for anything else before then. We'll probably get something else. Also, Conway the Machine's debut album on Shady Records, God Don't Make Mistakes. Now, this is the type of stuff I love. Like, when you're constantly dropping albums, I mean, not albums, but music in general, mixtape, project after project after project, that are crazy, they're dope, and you still haven't had your debut album, I always feel like that's going to be special. Now, it's difficult to say that because I think it worked for Nipsey with Victory Lap, because Victory Lap was dope to me. But I don't think it worked for somebody like Dave East, where Survival was good, but I almost feel like I've heard better from him. You know what I'm saying? So I'm kind of feeling like Conway probably should have dropped his official album, if not last year, at least 2018. I feel like it should have happened, but hopefully, you know, he's saving the best for this debut. And you know, Griselda Records' momentum right now is ridiculous. So it is what it is. J. Cole, who said he was stepping away from music for a minute to work on his new solo album, which will be called The Fall Off. Now, supposedly, it won't have any features on it. I think that has a lot to do with the fact that J. Cole stans, not fans, but J. Cole stans, love to say that he goes platinum with no features as if that's a feat that hasn't been done in the 40 plus years of hip hop. These are not hip hop fans. These are J. Cole only fans. But nevertheless, J. Cole can be hit or miss with the albums. And for me personally, he's in that miss zone, which is scary because I'm kind of hoping for something dope. I liked KOD. That was his last solo album. Some people didn't like it, but I liked it. I feel like now we're gonna get the whack one. So we'll see what we get. Another one that's probably top of my highly anticipated list. Why? Because he's been silent the entire time. That's Kendrick Lamar. Now, why is Kendrick Lamar probably my most anticipated for 2020? Track record. I mean, it's okay to not like Kendrick Lamar's voice or his style or his music. But generally, as far as the general consensus on Kendrick Lamar is that he's a very dope artist and he hasn't put out a whack project yet. He hasn't even put out an okay project yet. Now, some people may say, well, I don't find myself going back to those old albums. And I tend to agree with that because I'll go back to Good Kid, Mad City before I go back to Pimp a Butterfly, or even Damn I'll go back to because I guess it's the more recent joint. But To Pimp a Butterfly is probably his best album. You know, I would argue that with Good Kid, Mad City, but most people feel like, man, that second one was dope. But the brother hasn't had a subpar project yet in 4 straight projects, including, you know, the throwaway unmastered untitled joint. Like, everything he puts out is dope. And he hasn't been doing no features, or nothing crazy. He's done a couple of features, but they've been really low key. The only thing I wonder, and the only thing that scares me about that, not that he hasn't done it before, is has Kendrick Lamar reached that point where he can do a Jay-Z or Nas, right? Just say, boom, a new album's coming. People get excited and they're just locked in already. Are we going to be like that for Kendrick? I feel like every time Kendrick drops a record, I'm kind of tense. Like, oh man, is this going to be the time where it's trash? Is this the one where he kind of falls off? It's difficult for me to say sometimes. And sometimes when I hear that first single, I'm not really into it until I hear it in the context of the album. And then I know why he made it. And then I know why it's the first single. And it just comes off as genius. So I'm hoping for the best. I honestly have no idea what to expect. Kendrick has done something different each trip. For example, even though Section 80 was kind of like a precursor to Good Kid, Mad City, To Pimp a Butterfly was nothing like Good Kid, Mad City. And Damn was more of a combination of Good Kid, Mad City and To Pimp a Butterfly. So with the climate of the way things are now, as far as, you know, Drake done battled Pusha T and Griselda Records, is, even though they're not getting, I was going to say a lot of airplay, they're not really getting any airplay unless it's like late at night, K-Slay or somebody, at least here in New York City. I can only hope that what he puts out is just surprising, dope, old school, new school. It's just what he does. So we'll see. Now, I did mention a couple of things, and let's take a couple more shots in the dark about 2020, right? I think we'll get a Jay-Z album or EP. I think Jay-Z and a couple of other artists who probably don't want to admit it, but I think somebody like Jay-Z is encouraged by what he's been hearing from Griselda Records. I think he wants to do something along those lines. I think the problem with Jay now is he can't really talk that talk without referring to the past. And he can only sprinkle in a couple of new things because he's just kind of too much into that business world where certain things you just can't talk about, Jay, right? Or mess up the money, or mess up the deals or whatever. But I think he's encouraged by it. I wouldn't be surprised if he did another collaborative project with someone. I wouldn't be surprised if he did something like an EP, or if he tried to do something that was like just really hip hop. Just give me a bunch of just familiar hip hop beats and remix them and do whatever to them and bring back that feeling, and I'll just spit like I'm the best ever. That's me wishful thinking. The last time Jay resembled anything like what he used to be, Blueprint Jay, Reasonable Doubt, Hard Knock Life Jay, was probably American Gangster. Mainly because a lot of that had to do with him being inspired by a movie, so that kind of opened the gate for him to talk about certain things. But I did like 444, so there you have it. But I definitely don't want another one of those. Let's keep it away from there. I don't think we'll get anything from Nas. I think he's just gone 2 years straight of giving us music, and we did not like it. Again, when he dropped the Nasir joint with Kanye, my problem with that was it just didn't sound like a Nas project. Lost Tapes 2 was supposed to right the ship, and it had a lot of skippables on there. Too many skippables. I always felt there was a Nas album that was being worked on that wasn't released. Since the Major Keys days with DJ Khaled. But I don't know if we'll get that this year because, Nas is a big dude in hip hop. And again, when he's dropping something need to happen. Another joint that I think will probably happen is I think Royce and Eminem are going to drop a Bad Meets Evil 2 album. I like the first album. I like when Royce and Eminem just make crazy lyrical serial killer rapping songs. I don't know, something just creative about just putting that many words into your bars. And I know I criticize some artists for doing that, but I mean, we know what Royce can do and we know what M can do. Nevertheless, I think we're going to get something new from Royce because he kind of took this year off as far as dropping projects. I think we'll get something from the Roots. It's been a while. I would prefer something from Black Thought. I think his EPs that he put out in 2018 were very encouraging as far as like wanting to hear something made by, Black Thought. But if it has to be a Roots album, I'm fine with that. Hopefully it's dope. Word on the street, there would be a Q-Tip album, a solo album. I don't know what to think about that. I mean, I hope so. And one thing I did mention on my other podcast, That Time in Hip Hop, kind of like a shot in the dark as far as a hope or a want. I guess you could call these like my wishes. Let's see if I could come up with 3. But one wish I had, because I was encouraged by Phife Dawg's performance on A Tribe Called Quest's album, what Premier was able to do with Guru verses on the new Gangstar album that we did not know we were going to get. Lil Fame and Sean Price having a project together that really sound dope, had a lot of Sean Price on it. It basically sounded like it was completed. I'm encouraged by all of that. So what do I want in 2020? Give me a Mobb Deep album. The last one. Havoc, get them Prodigy verses, whatever you got, whatever you can buy for somebody else. Do what Primo did and want one last Mobb Deep album. Please. Because we can never really get it again like we want to, because obviously Prodigy is gone. So let's make that happen. Another hip hop wish of mine. Let's see if I could get 3, but here's 2. I want season 2 of the Wu-Tang Clan series that was on Hulu. I know there were a couple of people who in the beginning wasn't really feeling it because, a lot of the actors did not look or sound in some cases like the people they were playing. But that's not what I took away from the show. I mean, I got over that hump. I guess my biggest gripe was Ghostface. Because I was like, come on now. Like, Ghostface is just a lot of swag when he talk and all of that. And the actor was trying to put a lot of swag in it, but he just didn't have the, Shonda, go to Shonda house, put the glass on the table. Like, he needed to really be going in. But I guess that would have been cheesy. But what he did that I noticed, I saw when Ghostface, you've seen it in interviews, you heard it in songs, but I saw when Ghostface was on the couples therapy joint, it is the emotion, how emotional Ghostface can be about certain things, and a little bit of, for a man with a lot of confidence, a lot of insecurities. And that's what I think I loved about the show. I think it introduced me to these brothers as people. So I really understood what RZA was doing. Like, I knew what RZA was doing back then, but now I really understood him. You know what I'm saying? And same thing with Raekwon and Ghostface. Like I said, their motivations and the things that influenced them to want to do what they were doing as a group. So I need a season 2 because it wasn't a lock that a season 2 was going to happen. This was just a thing that was supposed to be a limited series, meaning one season. So hopefully it can happen again and they can get, all the actors in. I guess I would want a little bit more character development of ODB, because I kind of felt like he was just comic relief when we already know that brother has a story also, and they didn't really humanize him. They just made him, a character. Who knows? That might have been by design or wishes by the family. Who knows? But nevertheless, I don't think it did it justice in a way. Characters like the RZA and Devon were really developed to basically put you inside their heads and transport you back to that time. So, in all, it was dope. And I guess my last wish for 2020, it's something that I want to continue. I want these HipHop Surprises to continue, right? I like the idea of constantly hearing these collaborations that are happening. Like to wake up one day and see Premier promoting the fact that a new Gangstar album's coming out and he puts a single out and it sounds dope. I need more of that to happen, right? I need somebody to surprise us with some collaborations, or maybe, maybe we get the J. Cole and Kendrick Lamar album we've been thinking would happen, right? That could be the next step for Kendrick to kind of, keep it going as far as his dope music. I'm pretty sure TDE is loading the clip for a bunch of releases. I need more hip hop to come out, and I don't want a whack year, y'all. I don't want a whack year. We've had 2 very strong years in hip hop in 2018 and 2019, and we need that to continue, because while we had albums that came out that didn't really meet expectations, we had plenty of albums that came out that did meet expectations, that dropped and surprised us. And some that had no expectations and surprised us, like Jim Jones' El Capo album. Like on a lot of people's best of 2019 list. So I just want to have more of those surprises in hip hop. You know what I'm saying? More reasons to talk about hip hop, and in a positive way. You know, no, I mean, I can't say no deaths, because death is a natural part of life, unfortunately. But let's just be smart in 2020. Let's make it about the music, and let's keep it cordial, and just continue to celebrate this music, this culture, this art form that we all love. That's going to do it for me for this week. You can follow me on Instagram and Twitter by following the name Vegas World INC. That's Vegas World INC. Please know that this podcast is available wherever you listen to podcasts, so it doesn't matter if you're on an iPhone or if you're on an Android or you're on your computer. Whatever the case may be, wherever you listen to podcasts, all you have to do is search the words Hip Hop Now Podcast, hit that subscribe button, and stay locked into weekly hip hop content. Until next time, y'all, I am not a critic, I'm a fan. Peace. Drop it on the random.